Let's welcome Professor Thornbury. We are very honored to hear that you are presenting this webinar for the first time. Ladies and gentlemen, 10 communicative activities that work online by Scott Thornbury.
Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, and thank the Uribe Academy for making this possible. It's wonderful to see so many people in the room from so many different countries, and many countries that I have visited. In fact, if you'd just like to type into the chat whether you've met me or seen me in a local conference. I have been to Chile before, Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, Peru, Uruguay I've been to, Claudia in Chile, Daniela in Chile. I saw Alistair Grant on the interview, Marisa, the other night, yes, or the other day for you. Veronica, you know my books, okay. Good morning, Mariel from Uruguay. Oh, somebody from Spain. Maria Rosa. Hola, Maria. Well, as Abigail says, this is a new talk for me. I've never done this before, so I'm trying this out. So any feedback will be very useful and welcome. Although many of the ideas in it I have talked about or written about with reference mainly to classroom learning, not to online learning. So just give me a show of hands or just into the chat box. Are you teaching online now? Yeah, I can see exactly. Okay, a lot of, we're all in it together. Okay, so, so the idea is I'm going to share some activities which for me work well in the classroom, and I want to see if we can transfer them into an online setting using, for example, Zoom, which we're doing now. So I'm going to demonstrate a few activities with you, and then we'll talk about them. Okay, so this is the first activity. Can you see me? Can you see where I am? Can you see what's behind me? Can you see what I'm wearing? Okay, okay, right. Have you got your chat window open? Because in a minute, I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to change 3 things, yeah? I'm going to change 3 things that you can see. Okay, you ready? So I'm going, and then I'll ask you what you think I've changed, and then we'll see if you're correct. All right. So video is going off, and I'm changing. I'm changing. I'm changing. I'm changing something. I'm changing. I've never done this before. You ready? Oh, somebody's camera's not working. Okay, now type into the chat window what you think I have changed. For example, with yes/no questions, and then I'll show you. Close. I want a full, Maria, so I want a full question. I want a full question. It has to be in full, well-articulated, grammatically correct English, not clothes, not your shirt. No, you have to ask the question. No. Okay. Have you changed the background? Says Claire. Very good. Have you changed the pot? Have you changed your clothes? Have you changed your glasses? Have you changed your books? Have you removed the pot? Oh, this is fantastic. Did you change the books? Have you changed the books? Computer's not a question, Daniela. I want the full question. Have you changed your hair? What? Have you changed your glasses? Okay, I'm going to let you see now, and you can see if you're correct or not. So tell me what you think I've changed. I want a full sentence. I want a full sentence. You removed one pot. Yes. One of the pots is missing. Yes. Yes, you've changed your shirt. You have, I have indeed. Anything else? That's two things. You remove, oh, you've changed your shirt. I haven't changed any books. You've changed the color of your hair. Yes, very quickly. I didn't add some books. No. Yes, I've removed a pot. We've got that already. Ah, yes. Look, the glasses. Yes, they changed the glasses. Can you see the difference? Okay, brilliant. Okay. So there are three things. I've removed a pot, I've changed my shirt, and I've changed my glasses. Okay, it was interesting what grammar you were using there. Did you notice? Yes, Grisella, exactamente, the present perfect. Although there were some examples of, and I think it's perfectly legitimate, of the past simple, did you change the pot? It's very difficult, isn't it, to get a practice activity which uses the present perfect again and again and again. This is the nearest I can imagine. It's based on a classroom activity where you send one student outside the classroom, you change some things in the classroom, the student comes back in and says, have you written something on the board? Have you moved a table? Have you changed the chairs, etc.? But this is easy to do online. And I could put you into rooms now. I'm not going to, because there's too many of you and we don't have a lot of time. I could put you into rooms and you could do exactly the same thing, which means at least one person has to have their camera on. Not everybody, not necessary, but one person has to take a turn with the camera, change, and then turn their camera off, change something, and then, okay. And the structure, you can give them the structure. You can say beforehand, you have to use the present perfect, but I didn't say that. I wanted to see what you would use. And as Anna says, it's the most difficult tense for us Spanish speakers. Yes, but you were using it fantastically. So that's one activity. It's a guessing game. Yeah, it's a guessing game. And I just want to do a couple of other possibilities for guessing games. But first of all, I'm going to share my screen and we'll go into the PowerPoint. Okay, you should be able to see that now from the beginning. I'll put the pot back before I break it. Okay, so these are, and I'll explain in a minute what I mean by communicative activities, but they're very easy to do if you can show a visual. So this is another one. You're all familiar with Where's Willy, yeah? So again, using the chat, where is it? There it is. I'll just turn off those. Okay, using the chat, I'm going to choose one person in this picture. And you have to ask yes/no questions. Which person I am. Are you, okay, are you ready? Hang on, I'm not ready. Okay, I've got him or her. Okay, so write your questions quickly into the chat and I'll tell you if you're correct or not. I'll tell you if you're warm. Are you a man? Yes, I am a man. No, I'm not blonde. Are you wearing a hat? No, I'm not wearing a hat. Are you on the beach? Yes, I'm on the beach. Everyone's on the beach. Are you eating? Are you wearing yellow shorts? No. Are you playing the ball? No. Are you riding a horse? No. Are you swimming? No. Are you a baby? Are you thin? No. Well, thin? Yeah, I'm a bit thin. Are you wearing jeans? Difficult to tell. Are you sunburned? No, I'm not the sunburned one. Are you a dog? Are you playing? No. Are you fat? No. Are you running? No. Are you wearing yellow shorts? No. Are you wearing a hat? Are you yes, Veronica. I'm sitting under an umbrella. Well done. Can you see me? I'm sitting under an umbrella. Brilliant. Wow, fantastic. What were you practicing there? You can stop now. I'm under the umbrella. Yes, I'm wearing trousers. Daniela, yes, present continuous. Yes, yes, yes. Fantastic. Easy, no? Or you could also, we've stopped. We're on, I'm under the umbrella. No, we've stopped. Stop. Present continuous, or have you got, it could be, yeah? Or any language of description, yeah? Are you tall? Are you short? Are you fat? Are you wearing, etc., yeah? You can make it a little harder by insisting on a longer structure. Are you the person who? Yeah, and you might want to write that up, yeah, in the chat box at the beginning. I want you to use this structure. Are you the person who is riding a horse, for example? Are you the person who is eating ice cream, and so on, to make it a little bit more difficult, depending on the level. Okay, you got the idea. So that's another guessing game. Very, very easy. You can find any picture like this online. Other guessing games include I'm looking at something in front of me on my desk. Yeah, you have to guess what it is. It's something that I use or I own that's important for me. Yeah, you're not going to do this, but you get the idea. So questions, and it may be a good idea to write up some example questions in that case. So on the whiteboard, for example, if it's an object, it could be questions like, is it plus adjective? Yeah? Is it big? Is it small? And can you with it? Yeah? Can you eat with it? Can you write with it? Can you type with it, etc.? And very important, is it made of metal? Is it made of paper? Is it made of cardboard? Is it made of plastic, etc.? But these are yes/no questions that they ask for guessing what the object is that you are holding or looking at or wearing or is in your room at the moment. Yeah? And it's very useful to give them this these models, especially at lower levels. You can't predict the vocabulary they'll need, but you can predict the structures they'll need. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, another guessing game is, of course, the famous person. I'm a famous person, alive or dead. You have to ask me yes or no questions. Are you a man? Are you alive? Etc., etc. For the younger learners, I'm an animal or a bird or a fish or a reptile. Yeah, I'm a living thing. You have to ask me questions like, are you big? Are you small? Do you lay eggs? Can you fly? Can you swim? Do you have wings? Do you have 4 legs? That kind of thing. That's great for young learners particularly. Or for older learners, what's my job? So I think of an interesting job. And you have to ask me questions like, do you work inside or outside? Do you wear a uniform? Do you need a lot of training? Do you use tools, etc.? So again, you can model these questions on the whiteboard if you're working online. Another one is, for example, you can give some clues. So for example, I'm going to give you 3 words that relate to my that tell the story of my weekend, yeah? And this might be, for example, the 3 words are fish, let me see, fish, mop, and 3 nouns. These are fish, mop, and shirt, yeah? And so again, you have to ask yes/no questions to work out what I did this weekend. Did you eat fish? Did you catch fish? Did you buy fish? Did you mop the house? Did you do some cleaning? Did you buy a new shirt? Did you change your shirt, etc.? Yeah. So students can do this in pairs after the teacher has demonstrated it to the class. Guessing games, fantastic. Okay. Change of activity. Now, I'm going to show you some shapes. I just want you to tell me what the shape is in the text box. So this is the first shape. Can you write in what it is? I mean, if I was doing this with a smaller class, I would just have you shout out. It's not right, but just speak. but we've got so many people here. Veronica, yes. Oh, Cindy was fast as a triangle. Good, okay. And what's this one? Thank you, Kate. Well done. Quick off the mark. Everybody, Michelle, Vanina, yes. It's a square. And this one? Wow, you're so quick. This is amazing. Considering the distance between us, it's a blue circle, it's a circle. And finally, this one. Wow, yep, a rectangle. So we have the 4 shapes. Okay, now, so that's the vocabulary. Now I'm going to describe an arrangement of these shapes. I want you to draw it, just on anything. You have pencil and paper. Yeah, do you have pencil and paper handy? I want you to draw it on a piece of paper like that you can show us. Yeah? Not on the screen, on a pencil and paper. Okay, so you ready? I'm going to describe a combination. You draw it, and then when you think you're ready, I'm going to ask you to show it. Okay, so this is the shape. This is the arrangement. Yeah. On the left, there is a square. On the right, there is a triangle. Between the square and the triangle is a rectangle. Inside the triangle, there's a circle. Okay, easy, no? Show me. Who's going to be the first to show me? Yeah! Yes, Miss Cloud, I think we've got it back to front. Michelle, well done. Paula, well done. Fantastic. Yeah, and I'll show you what I was attempting to do. And there it is there. Let's look, shapes. That's it. Yeah, something like that. Now, of course, I've made it very simple. I could make it more complicated. And notice, by the way, that I didn't check with you the prepositions, but that's something you might want to do at this stage when you're checking the vocabulary. Yeah, where is the triangle? Where is the square? Where's the rectangle? Where's the circle? On the left, on the right, under, above, and between, the minimum language to be able to describe this picture. So you do it with the students, and then of course the students do it to each other. Again, if you're working online, they can do this in the breakout room. So one of them dictates, so there's 5 in the room, one of them dictates to the others their picture. They have to draw it first quickly, and then they show their pictures. And you can do it in the full classroom with the students doing it back to the teacher. So our student does it and does it to the teacher. This is a good check that they've got the vocabulary, the prepositions, etc. There's an extension of this activity which works really well in the classroom but doesn't work online, I don't think. And that is where you have 2 teams. Now, let me see if I can describe this so you can imagine it. So you have the blackboard, yeah, in front of the room. Let's say you have 20 students. So you divide them into 2 teams of 10, 10 and 10. Each student has, each team elects a student to go to the front of the room. Yeah, so there's 2 students at the board. Yeah. The teacher has a picture of a shape. The students at the board are behind the teacher. Yeah? The students in the classroom, the 2 teams can see the picture. They have to describe the picture to their representative at the board who draws the picture. The first team or the first representative to draw the picture correctly gets a point. So the teams are directing their representative at the board. You get the idea? It's very simple. It works very well. It's very noisy, I have to tell you that. I warn you. when I did this the first time in a school in London, the other teachers were banging on the wall saying, can you keep the noise down? It's fantastic. The students are so desperate to compete that, and then of course they have another one, you know, they take turns. And so, and you can have the drawings, you can make the drawings more or less complicated according to the level of the students. But this basic arrangement of shapes works. It doesn't have to be shapes. It can be a picture of a room, for example, with table, chair, sofa, etc. Or a landscape with mountain, tree, house, birds, lake, and so on. But you have to check the vocabulary beforehand. Okay, here's another activity which involves drawing, which I've done in the classroom, but I haven't done online. But let's see if you think it will work. We'll do it. Okay, so it's called What's Matilda Doing Now? That's the question. This is the answer. This is an example. Can you write in the chat what she's doing? Oop. Hang on. I've lost it. Okay, yes, she's riding a bike, absolutely. So the idea is, in the classroom, do you know Pictionary? Do you know the game Pictionary? Pictionary is we have teams, and they have to draw, usually it's a word, and the first team to draw it gets a point. Well, this is called Grammar Pictionary. It's a sentence, and the first team to draw the sentence gets a point. So in the classroom, this works. Again, you have teams, 2 or 3 teams, however many teams, not too big, 5 students per team. One person from each group comes to the front of the class. You show them a sentence or a picture. Yeah, what's Matilda doing now? She's getting dressed, or she's cooking lunch, or whatever. They have to run back and draw the picture for their team, and the first team to guess it gets a point. But we're going to do this online. And the sentence is not what's Matilda doing now, but because of the COVID, what hasn't Matilda done since last, for example, can you give me a sentence for this picture? Matilda, what hasn't she done because of the COVID? Whoop, I've lost you. Exactly, Francisca. She hasn't been to the zoo with the family. She hasn't been to the zoo since she hasn't played with a balloon. She hasn't gone out with her family. Matilda hasn't been to the zoo since January. Fantastic, Grisella. And that's what I want. I want a full sentence using the answer to that structure, okay? Exactly. She hasn't been to the zoo since January. Fantastic. Okay, right. Now, I'm going to draw a picture on the whiteboard, if I can, which is another thing she hasn't done, plus the date, okay? You ready? Whoops, we'll get rid of that. Okay, are you ready? Okay, so when you think you know, you write it in the chat box, but it has to be the full sentence, yeah? I'm not accepting zoo, that's not enough. No, it has to be the full sentence with the month. Okay, let's see if we can draw this. Whoops. No, that's no good, hang on, start again. This is terribly difficult. Oh, okay. Okay, that's better. Ah! No. It's not the beach. No, but this is very good. The picture's not very clear. Ah! Jimena. Okay, and what's the full sentence? Rosario, Matilda hasn't been to the cinema since not January, February. Yes, 1 point for Claudia. I think, no, it wasn't the beach, it was the... I did it much better when I was practicing, but you get the idea. So the students go into their rooms and do the same thing. And I think the fun is, it's so difficult to draw on the whiteboard, but that's half the fun. Of course, you could do this with pencil and paper, and they could just use the camera and show their drawings, but it's kind of fun. The idea is, of course, that it elicits lots of examples of the structure. It doesn't matter if it takes ages to guess, but they're practicing. She hasn't since. So what do you do with that? What do you do with these wonderful sentences that come up? And this is one thing you can do with them. You write them on the board. She hasn't been to the movie since February. And then you create a table, yeah? And this is after the activity, yeah? So they've all had a chance, and then you say, okay, give me some of your sentences. And you write them in the table. We've already seen she hasn't been to the zoo since January. And then maybe true sentences about the class. We haven't eaten, we haven't eaten in a restaurant since she hasn't seen his grandmother. So, Edu hasn't played football. And then we can change the structure for ages. Then what we have here is a wonderful way of displaying this particular version of the present perfect. Again, our big problem tense. So we're using the activity not just to practice the structure, but also to highlight the structure and how it's formed using the table. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a second, and I'm just going to explain what I'm doing here, because these are meant to be 10 communicative activities for practice both in the classroom and online. And I just want to refer here to an article written quite some time ago by two researchers who identified 5 characteristics of what makes a good, what they called creative automatization activity. That is to say, automatization means when you make something automatic, you don't have to think about it. Yeah? The idea is we want the grammar to become automatic so the students don't have to think about it. But they also, it's not just repeating the same sentence again and again, it has to be creative. So they have to have a mental structure like this, which allows them to create an infinite number of sentences. And these are the researchers way back in 1988 and made a big impression on me in that article. And they said these kinds of activities should be, first of all, genuinely communicative. What does that mean, genuinely communicative? Genuinely communicative. I mean, what makes an activity communicative? Let's have a look at this picture and this picture. Which one is genuinely communicative? The top picture or the bottom picture? The second one, says Vanessa. Why? Maria Sol agrees. Bottom one, says Rosario. Why? Rosario, yes, because she's listening to him. She's listening. Notice in the top picture, they're interacting, but there's no reason. They're not necessarily listening to each other. They could just be saying anything. We have an expression in Spanish, un diálogo de besugos. Do you have that in Argentina, Chile? They could be just saying anything. But the second one, the one is listening. There is communication happening. So this is the difference between interaction and communication. Do you see it? Interaction, you have students, for example, an interaction activity in a classroom may be students reading a dialogue. They can read the dialogue to each other, they're interacting, but they don't have to listen. They don't have to listen. Communication activity is when you have to listen. Now think about the guessing game. Yeah? The guessing game at the beginning. There's communication there because I have to listen to you and you have to listen to me to do the activity. Yeah? So if you're imagining you're an animal and I say, do you have wings? You have to listen. And you have to say, yes, I do. And I have to listen to your answer. That's genuine communication. And why is that better than interaction? For lots of reasons. If you have to listen, you're doing two things, not just one skill, speaking, or one skill, listening. You're speaking and listening. So there's a deeper processing going on. There's more work, there's more mental work, more chance perhaps of the language kind of becoming automatic. It's more authentic because that's what we do in real life. We communicate most of the time when we use language. And the focus is on meaning. The focus is on meaning. I'm not listening to how you are saying it. I'm listening to what you're saying. So if I say, do you have wings? And the answer is yes, I have two wings. That's what's important, the meaning, not the form of it. And this is, again, what real language use is about. So good fluency activities, you like, need to be communicative. Yeah, they should be generally communicative. There should be two-way processing of language, listening and speaking, or reading and writing, like we've been doing in the chat box. They should be psychologically authentic. This simply means that they should have the psychological conditions should simulate or replicate real life speaking or reading or writing. Yeah? That it should happen, if it's speaking, it should happen quickly. It should happen spontaneously. It should happen in real time. Most of the speaking and listening we do is happening in real time. Yeah? A lot of it is face-to-face too, but not necessarily, of course, because we speak on the phone and we can communicate like we are now. But it's happening fast. It's happening in real time. That puts a lot of pressure on people. It's kind of stressful to produce language in real time. That's why students get stressed when they have to speak in class. That's why we give them a chance to practice in pairs, for example, beforehand. So they go on to say that activities should be designed to allow learners to experience some of the normal psychological pressures felt by people engaged in real communication. Think how many activities we do in the classroom where students are sitting down, but in real life, when they're speaking and listening, they may not be sitting down, they may be standing up, they may be moving. So how many activities do we do in the classroom where students are actually standing up? Of course, they can't do that online, but putting a little bit of extra pressure can sometimes be good. Having students film themselves, for example, film themselves, record themselves, and post the recording using software like Flipgrid, for example, puts a little bit more psychological pressure on them, which is more like real life. So it should be generally communicative, psychologically authentic, focused. Focus means there should be a point to it, an outcome, an objective, something to achieve. A classic activity that is generally communicative, psychologically authentic, and focused is the famous find someone who. This is an example from New Headway Pre-Intermediate, way back 20 years ago. Famous activity. Teacher will give you a card which says, find someone who, for example, find someone who's been to China. The students stand up, they walk around, and they ask the question, have you been to China? Have you been to China? Have you been to China? And then they ask more questions. What did you do there? Why did you go, etc. And then, very importantly, this is the outcome. This is the focus. Part 3, they report back to the class. For example, no one has been to China, or Pierre and Sophie have been to China, and so on. Yeah. So there's a point to it. There's a focus. And activities with this kind of framework or focus seem to be good for not just fluency, but for accuracy. Peter Skian says tasks with inherent structure, they've got a kind of framework, a structure, seem to provide some sort of scaffold, some kind of framework, which leads learners to emphasize accuracy. That's what the research says. So that is a good thing. It's not just about fluency, it's about accuracy. What else? Activities with general communicative, centric, focus, formulaic. Now, formulaic means that there should be some kind of use of regular, frequently used expressions, formulae. Yeah? Because we know that a lot of language use, particularly in speaking, is formulaic. We use the same structures again and again and again. Here's, for example, some formulae. This is I got off a corpus online. Expressions with ever. These are the most common ones. With ever. I've ever seen, I've ever had, have you ever been, I have ever seen, have you ever seen, I've ever heard, I've ever been, I've ever heard, I've ever met, I've ever done. Now, these are the kind of formulae that will come up when you're doing find someone who. Have you ever? Yeah, number 3, have you ever been to China? Have you ever been to Morocco? Have you ever been to Colombia, etc.? So it's repetition of this particular formulaic structures, whether it's grammar or expressions, it doesn't matter, but it's formulaic. These are commonly used constructions, we can call them. Because, there's a bit of theory for you, do you get that? This is a bit of looking at the research into second language acquisition. The prevailing view today is that learners unpack the parts that comprise a sequence. They have a sequence like have you ever, they learn it by heart, expression, then they, have you ever, has she ever, has he ever, have we ever, yeah? And in this way they discover the second language grammar. In other words, formulaic sequences serve as a kind of starter pack from which the grammar is generated. The grammar comes out of these memorized sequences. So if you can get them into the activity, fantastic. Now, do you remember the activity we started with, of 3 changes? What was the formulaic pattern there that you were using when I changed 3 things? Yeah? Have you, plus present, have you changed, yeah. Have you taken, have you put, have you removed, yeah. Now you could use did you, but a lot of you are using have you. And I'm not saying one is better than the other in that context, but it's great that you were using the present perfect. But as I said before, it's a really difficult structure to practice in high volume like that. Okay, and finally, 1, 2, 3, 4, inherently repetitive, because it's about practice. And practice means repetition, not mindless repetition of the old style, like when drilling. Have you ever been to China? Have you ever been to China? Have you ever been to Italy? Have you ever been to Italy? Have you ever been to Egypt? That's no good, because it's not genuinely communicative. But when they're going around saying, have you ever been to China? Have you been to China? Have you been to China? That's generally communicative, and it's formulaic, and it's repetitive. And because they're walking around, it's psychologically authentic. And because there's an outcome, they have to report it, it's focused. So those are the kinds of activities that I'm always looking for. One way of, we'll just skip that. And here are 10 of them. And we've only got 20 minutes left, so I'm going to have to talk very fast to get you through them. I was going to put you into groups to do the next one, and I'll come back to this list in a minute. But here's one of my favorite activities in the total world. And I didn't invent it, unfortunately, but I love it. And you just put this up, or you write it into the chat box. And what the students have to do is in groups of 3 or 4 or 5 even, is to generate in a time limit as many true sentences as they can with this pattern. One of us can, yeah? One of us can speak Portuguese. 2 of us can stand on our head. All of us can play the guitar. none of us can drive a car. Yeah? How are they going to get these sentences? Any ideas? And their groups? Surely, yes. They're going to have to ask each other questions. Exactly. Can you, or who can? Who can drive a car? Who can speak Portuguese? Who can play the guitar? Can you play the guitar? Okay, one of us can play the guitar. Yeah, fantastic. And then they report to the class. So they do that in the breakout room. They write it down on a piece of paper. That's the easiest. Don't bother with the whiteboard or anything because you can't take it with you if you're using Zoom. Write it on a piece of paper. You can do a screencast, true, but just write it on a piece of paper. One of them can write it on a piece of paper. All the sentences from the group. They come back to the main room and they report, they say, 2 of us can play the guitar. And then the teacher can say, oh, that's interesting. Let me guess, which 2? Is it Adriana and Montse? No, okay, and so on, so on, so on. Little conversation. The beauty of this activity is it generates lots of real sentences. It's formulaic, remember, formulaic. And also you can change the structure. It doesn't have to be can, it could be would, or it could be, our favorite again, has, never, or have never, plural. 2 of us have never, or none of us have ever been in a balloon, for example. Fantastic, fantastic exercise. You can do it online. It's very communicative. Here's another one, paper conversation. I love this. Every lesson begins with a paper conversation. What's a paper conversation? Paper conversation is a conversation, but they're not speaking, they are writing. They're writing on a piece of paper and it's going backwards and forwards. It's like texting online. In fact, you could do it texting, but I think it works just as well with a piece of paper. Or if they're in breakout rooms, they can open the whiteboard, if it's in Zoom, and open the text box. And then they can type into the text box. And here's an example from my teenage students in Spain. I'm sure you've seen this before, some of you. Hello, Pablo. So they're writing and exchanging the paper. Hello, Pablo. Hello, Albert. What did you do last weekend? It isn't your problem. Did you see Spain-Belgium match? I enjoyed. Where are you going to Christmas holidays? I'm going to a small village of Soria. Now notice that it's not 100% accurate, but because it's written down, I've been going around supplying suggestions of how to improve it. So for example, not it isn't your problem, but it isn't your business. But no, hang on, there's a really good expression, mind your own business. So I write that down. So the beauty of this is they're having a conversation. It's happening in real time. That's the psychological authenticity. It's happening in real time, but it's not happening as fast as speaking. It's happening as quickly as it takes them to write it. And they write pages of this. And you've got wonderful data that you can go back to and use again and again and again. So that's a paper conversation. This is another one. Everybody knows this, that we've been doing it in classrooms since the beginning of time, show and tell, and it works online brilliantly. So for example, here's an example of a group of, there's the teacher in the middle, and these are students and parents from all over the world working on a Saturday morning activity run by the Hands Up Project. If you don't know about it, you should. And the girl on the right is showing a jacket that is very precious to her. So she's telling everybody about it and they're asking questions and then they take turns. Very, very easy to set up on Zoom. And I could do it with you. I could show you. I could show you one of these. Okay, can you see these? See that? There's another one. And there's another one. You see those? Okay, you can ask me questions. Any questions you want to ask? Well, I'll tell you, it's a figurine. Yes, where'd you get them? A friend made them. Yeah, he's a potter. A potter? You know, ceramicista. So they're made here. How much? They were free. They were a gift. Not especially for me, but I asked, he made a lot, so I asked if I could have 6. And do you notice the little particular feature? They're all wearing, they're made of clay. You don't use for anything. They're just decoration. And they're all wearing, did you see that? They're all wearing masks. Yes, Anna, exactly. Okay, something to remind us of. Okay, and so on. So show and tell, fantastic. Yeah, it could be something that's very personal to them. It could be photos, family photos, whatever, photos of their holiday. They talk about it. They answer questions. It's fantastic. It happens in real time. It's psychologically authentic. It's not very formulaic, admittedly, because they can use any kind of language they want, but it's fantastic practice. Okay, let's go back to this. Now, the next activity is very well known. So I'm not going to go into it in great detail. The Dicta Gloss. It's a kind of dictation, as you know, but it's a whole text, not just a sentence or words. The aim is not testing, but collaborative reconstruction. Collaborative reconstruction. The students hear a text, and then after they've heard it, they try to reconstruct it. So the communication is happening when they do the reconstructing. They're talking about the text. They're talking about language. It's a very rich encounter as they try to reconstruct the text from memory. So this is, again, the same class, Pablo and Albert, my teenage class here in Barcelona, and I gave them this text. They heard it. They didn't see it, but you could also, well, I'll come to that in a minute. They heard it. I read it once. They didn't write. They listened. No writing, just listening. There was a young woman from Uribe who went for a ride on a tiger. They returned from the ride with a woman inside and a smile on the face of the tiger. As soon as I'm finished, the students individually write down what they can remember. And this is what one student wrote. There was a woman from Riga who were on a tiger to make a ride. When they come back, the woman was in tiger and the tiger were smiling. Not bad, but not brilliant. Then I put them to groups of 3. And then they came up with a new version. There was a young woman from Riga who go for a ride on a tiger. The tiger come back with a woman silent and smile. You see it's getting better? Because they didn't hear it again. They didn't hear it again. Yeah? But they're working together, thinking, no, this has to be, no, I remember, no. And then the final version, the whole class, with one student writing on the board, they came up with this. There was a young woman of Riga who went for a ride on a tiger. The tiger returned with a woman inside and smiled on his face. Fantastic. It's not exactly the same as the original, and you can then show the original so you can compare, but it is 100% accurate. That's what happens with Dicta Gloss. And you can feed things into Dicta Gloss, some particular grammatical feature that you want to focus on that you think they won't come up with, but then they'll notice the difference when you show them the original. It doesn't have to be listening, it can be speaking. So you can give them this text, not speaking, reading. You give them this text, they read it for 2 seconds, and then you turn it off. Yeah, and they try to reconstruct it from memory in their breakout rooms if you're using Zoom. Yeah, they see it for a minute, they take it away in their mind's eye. Remember, they can't remember all the words because there's too many, but they can remember the image. Yeah, they reconstruct it, and then they compare it with the original. It's very, very easy to do. It doesn't require any sophisticated technology. They can write it into a Google document. That would help. And then they can share it, and you can compare it with the original. And then you can work on it. Then you can pull things out of it. Yeah, like this is a fabulous piece of Japanese poetry translated, which I use for teaching articles. The articles. First of all, they decide which picture goes with the poem. Which picture? The one on the left, yes. And then the task is identify the articles in the above text. Ooh, tiny text, lots of articles, because one of them is hidden. It's the 0 article. And the next question is why? Why the choice of articles? And of course, the answer is, let me see how clever you are. I lost the chat. Well, this always happened to me. Ah, there it is. Yes, the picture. Now, why? What's the difference? Well, we don't have time to go into it, but it's not about plural, although you can't use a with plural. I'll tell you. Indefinite article, that's 0 and a, new information. Definite article, shared information. So the big question is, how come the cherry trees are shared information? Because they haven't been mentioned before. I'll let you think about that. Let's move on. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 4 more to do, and I've got 5 minutes, and we haven't had the questions. Chain story, very easy. You give them a sentence, the beginning of a story. One of them then continues the story. That student can nominate the next student who writes another sentence. Yeah, it could be speaking or could be writing. Could be done in the breakout room, could be done with the whole class. In a real classroom, they can be each starting their own story and passing the paper to the next person. So you get 12 stories maybe going all at once. Then they read the stories. Surveys, fantastic. A bit like one of us, 2 of us, 3 of us can. So the idea is you get a topic, say, let's say sport. Yeah, you establish the topic. Students go into breakout rooms and they design a questionnaire. Questions. Are you sporty? Do you like sport? Do you play sport? Do you watch sport? What kind of sport do you like? Blah, blah, blah. Then using Zoom, you can recreate the room. So you can send all the students to different rooms automatically, where they ask the other students their questions. And they keep a note of the answer. So it's communicative. They have to listen. Then they go back to their original rooms. Now, I'm not sure how easy this is, actually. But the idea is they go back to the original rooms and they collate the results in the form of 5 out of 10 students say they never play sport. 7 out of 10 students like watching tennis and so on. And then they report to the whole class. They come back to the classroom and report. And that's very important, the report stage, because it's the focus. It's the focus. And remember when we said that there's a focus, if there's a framework, there's a push to be more accurate. Two-way translation is an activity which again is like Dicta Gloss. It's not the doing, it's the collaboration which is important. It's the collaboration as they try to work out, as they try to remember. So the basic idea is that they have a text in English and they translate it into Spanish if that's their first language. A short text. Yeah, so it could be that poem about the blossom. Okay, so they can do that all together as a class and they can write it into the chat room or onto the whiteboard, or they can do it in breakout rooms. And then the idea is that the original text then disappears. Yeah, you take the original text away and they have to try and translate the Spanish text back into English, unseen. So they don't see original, they've got to do it working backwards. And then they compare and discuss. And it's a great way, again, of noticing. But it's that conversation which is very important. Finally, discussion, particularly for higher levels, but a discussion is obviously a great fluency activity. And you can find examples online of good discussion questions, Or if it's a topic like sport is what you're talking about, you can design some statements for them to agree with. Playing sport is good for the mind, for example. Now, so students don't like always discussing the same thing. Maybe give them a choice so they can choose one of these statements or questions to discuss. Yeah? But they decide which one they want to discuss. You can give them 10 statements about sport. They choose one. They go to their groups. They go to their breakout room. They discuss it. And they come back and report. Again, the reporting is so important. They must know that they're going to report. Now, this is what I was going to do with you. We don't have time, but these are examples that if we had time, I'd put you into rooms and say, which of these activities, these 10 activities, did you like best? Which activity works best online? Which activity have I tried before? And so on. But we don't have time, so I'm going to stop now. And Abigail, did you collect any questions?
Yeah, we're going to collect the main questions. Please, if you have any, please
type them in.
Yeah, you have to type it on the chat. I'm trying to open the chat.
So Jocelyn has already asked you a question about two-way translation. Is it a speaking activity? It could be. I would usually do it as a writing activity because they need more time to process. And it's difficult to hold the whole thing. But they speak to each other when they're working out what the translation is. And then they're writing it down. So the collaboration is done with speaking. Lucia asks, can you use these activities in one-to-one classes? Absolutely. I mean, most of them, yes, absolutely. I think they work very well in the classroom. The question is, do they transfer to online? And I think some of them more easily than others. For advanced students, Camilla, I would use the discussion and I would do the translation, the two-way translation of text. That's very good. And for Dicta Gloss, always works at any level, but you've got to choose the text. But it mustn't be long. It mustn't be too long, but it can be quite difficult if you like. It can be a little news story, for example. More information about my next talk. Do you like this talk? Shall I do it again? Not for you, but for somebody else. Cara, you think so? Daniela, okay, great. All right, fantastic. Well, I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart because you have been my conejos de India. You're my guinea pigs. I've been trying this out on you. So, any feedback will be really, really useful. Abigail, anything else?
And they did it great, right? Yes. So thank you for sharing this. Okay, so well, I can say that it was really, really, I mean, simple. We are talking about simple, engaging, realistic, and achievable ideas. So, and you can adapt all these ideas with primary students and with children, with teenagers, and also adults. So thank you so much, Professor Thornbury, for sharing. Thank you for being so kind and so nice. We really enjoyed this presentation. And of course, thank you very much, everyone, for attending this session. Clap, 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 clap. It was fantastic. Thank you so much. And you are cordially invited to visit Chile, Argentina, Peru, and the beautiful continent that have in Latin America, and also some other teachers who have attended today, coming from different countries, not only from America, but here, most of teachers here live in Latin American countries, and we are so honored to have had you here today, sir. Thank you so much. And please, everybody, wherever you are, stay safe, and we are so glad to have you as always. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful time. And yes, use your mask. Wear your mask to protect yourself. And cheer up, teachers. We know we are living a hard time, but you are so strong, and English teachers are the best ones. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.